We're now at a new vineyard for us called W.E. Bottoms. One thing that I really like to do is do crop estimations at lag phase. So lag phase occurs after flowering, after set. It's about 55 days after 50% flowering. And they call it lag phase because basically the berry size is not changing. There's things happening inside the fruit, but it's sort of a lull in development. So then the next step will be veraison, which happens about 10 days after this. At lag phase, it's a really good marker for us to be able to count clusters, figure out yields. And for me, it's both a qualitative and it's a logistics question that I'm asking. I want to know how many tons am I buying so that I can also forecast what is that going to look like in the cellar. But also, it's also helpful for me to communicate whether or not I feel like the yields are higher or lower than they should be. Obviously, if they're higher, we can adjust the crop. If they're lower, we have no choice. But it just informs me of what the vintage looks like. Is it a heavy vintage? I'm gonna hang the fruit differently. I'm gonna think about fermentations differently. If it's a lighter crop, we really have to be careful about irrigation and making sure that the vines are healthy to maintain and maybe even slow down ripening if possible. So this is a new vineyard for us in 2020. 4 different clones on very tight spacing. So the spacing is about 4 feet by 4 feet, which means getting in here and doing tractor work is really difficult. So they have ATVs doing most of the work. Different type of growing. This is a typical vine density is Burgundy. Obviously the vigor and location is very different, but it should be really interesting. This is a vineyard that we're experimenting with. If it works out well, it'll end up in our cellar note series for this year. 4 different clones, all Dijons, 114, 115, 667, and 777. We're in the 777 right now. And so far, yields look pretty light. There is some shatter here, but overall, with the tight vine spacing, it probably is fairly decent on a tons per acre. So our last stop today is at Silver Eagle Vineyard. This is on Stoats Lane, kind of arguably the farthest west vineyard that we're working with to date. This is Pinot Noir. Again, doing a crop estimation, trying to get a sense of the yield coming from this vineyard. We get 1 clone, the Von Romani selection, and what I want to know is, in our block, are we looking at a similar tonnage to the previous year, or is it a little bit lighter? I'm seeing, by and large, a lot of our Pinots are down this year. Partly cluster size is smaller, but also cluster counts are lower, which ultimately leads to lower yields. So more of the same. I want to be informed as much as I can earlier in the season so that when we come to harvest, we can just react and perform instead of trying to figure out what's going on. It's way easier to do that ahead of time.